So how do we practice compassionate communication in order to have better relationships and to thrive?
Yeah. I'll kind of give you the cliff notes, but
Okay.
for sure I recommend the book Nonviolent Communication, The Language of Life. So there's kind of four components that he breaks down in the process of empathy.
Uh-huh.
And before talking about the components, there's a concept that as human beings, we all have the same core needs.
Mm-hmm.
Something as physical as the need for oxygen and water,
Yeah.
but also a need for connection, a need for autonomy, a need for physical well-being. So there's a lot of different core needs. When those needs are met, we experience a positive emotion.
Uh-huh.
When they're not met, there's a negative emotion.
Okay.
So the kind of four steps are: what's the evidence of what happened
Uh-huh.
without judgment? So like a video camera.
Yeah.
Um, you were talking to me and then you started saying these words and the volume was a lot louder than before,
Uh-huh.
as opposed to saying you were yelling at me,
Okay.
right? That's a judgment.
Uh-huh.
You can't say you were giving me the stink eye. You got to say you're looking at me and then the corners of your eyes went down like this. So you say what happened, and then you say the feeling that you have, the need that was met or wasn't met.
Okay.
And if a need wasn't met, a request. If it's you and me talking, a request of what would I like you to do to help me meet my need?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that you only do that in the request if it's wonderful for you.
Uh-huh.
And I have many options to meet my own needs. Because a lot of people get, especially in intimate relationships, unconsciously think that it's the other person's job to meet their needs.
Uh-huh.
And their spouse is supposed to know what their needs are. And when the spouse doesn't meet their need, there's resentment or anger.
So how might that play out in terms of a scenario?
Yeah, let me do a quick example just with you and me.
Okay.
So Lisa, when you asked me to be a part of this interview and are interviewing me today, I feel happy and I feel kind of purposeful because my need for meaning and purpose is met. Talking about what I value and what's important to me and being able to do that where maybe I can share it with others really meets my need for meaning and purpose. So thank you.
Wow. That is such a sweet thing to say.
And then the empathy statement when I'm working with someone else would say, how do you feel when I say that to you?
Yeah. Okay, so let me try to tell you how I feel. When you express appreciation for something I view as you coming here and doing me a favor, it makes me feel like the work I'm doing is valuable to other people, and it makes me feel honored. And it kind of meets my need for feeling like I'm doing something purposeful and valuable.
Yeah. You got it.
I was thinking that this is something that would just be used in a difficult conversation where we're adversarial. So it's interesting to hear you use a positive example and to think, well, maybe even in expressing a positive communication.
Oh, it's really important, especially with loved ones, of expressing and sharing the feedback of the impact.
Yeah.
Especially if people made a positive impact on you.
Yeah. So has this become habit in your life, or do you still think through the steps as you share?
Somewhere in between. Our family has an NVC coach who we pay to come out about once a month and go through drills with us.
Wow.
So part of it, just from doing it a lot, it's part of how my brain kind of thinks. And there's still room to grow.
Yeah. When you say that the last piece is for the person to grant the request for what they'd like, only if it's wonderful to them.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that last part?
Yeah. So I think, let's get an example. So my wife might say something to me like, David, I noticed when you came home, you emptied your pockets, like everything in your pockets, just onto the kitchen counter. And when I saw that, I felt stressed and angry, and my need for serenity and order wasn't met. So, if, my request would be, if it's wonderful for you, would you be willing to have a discussion with me about how can we help keep the house orderly and where you can feel like you feel productive and effective in processing the stuff in your pockets.
Yeah.
And then I would be open to say, yeah, I'm open. That would be wonderful to have that conversation because I love her. She's my wife, and I don't want her to be stressed, or anxious, especially if it's something simple that we can fix. So yeah, I check in with myself. That would be wonderful for me to have that conversation.
And have there been instances outside of your home or wherever where it has not been wonderful to try to accommodate someone's request, or does asking in this way generally result in you feeling wonderful?
No, definitely there's times where it doesn't. And what's important to realize from the NVC mindset is, in that example, it is not my job to meet Jana's needs for peace and order. That's her job. I can help with that, and she can ask me to help in a certain way. But when she realizes that's her job, then there's infinite possibilities to meet that need. Let's say I said no, right? Then she'd have to go back to the drawing board like, oh, okay, I feel stressed and not peaceful.
Right.
And I want to feel peaceful. How can I feel peace in this moment? We know from the most extreme example is Viktor Frankl in the Nazi concentration camps. Even with the most unimaginably horrific external circumstances, based on the power of our mind, we can still find lots of options for meaning and purpose. Yeah.
So at that point, it would be her responsibility to take care of her.
Well, it's always her responsibility to take care of her own needs. Yeah. And it's her, when she's asking me either for the conversation or maybe she has a certain solution, it's still her responsibility. She's like, this would be my favorite option right now. But if I say that's not wonderful, then she needs to look at other options.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
Right. But the concept is, and that's really fundamental, is getting that the mindset that really doesn't work is dependency of thinking that, my well-being is controlled by you or the outside.
Right.
Right. And that's where we get into codependency and really sticky situations. And we actually all, if you look at like a gazelle in Africa, right, from the time it's born to the time it's walking is what? How long?
Like minutes, probably. Yeah.
And humans, we're some of the longest gestation and the most, the longest period before we could feed ourselves. Maybe it's like 18 years or something. So we start off really dependent. It's a normal part of our life. Yeah. But it doesn't serve us when we're adults.
Yeah. That's a great mind shift for me to think about.
Yeah. So it's important with nonviolent communication. It's critical to have that mindset that these are my needs and it's my job. I'm the one who's ultimately responsible for getting my needs met. Yeah. That lets the other person off the hook. And that has a huge impact on relationships.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be here.